for this evening. We've come together to remember, to celebrate, and to pay tribute to a remarkable individual who's left a lasting mark on our organization and our profession, C.A. Hariharan, fondly called Hari Sir. Hari Sir, beloved partner of PK Sriranthapana LLP, was not just a colleague, but a mentor, a guide, and a friend to many of us, including me. His commitment to excellence, his integrity, and his passion for the field of taxation inspired us all. Today, as we remember him, let us not only reflect on his professional achievements, but also the profound impact that he has had in our lives, and draw inspiration from the celebrated legacy he's left behind. This evening, we'll have the privilege of hearing from distinguished speakers and experts who will share their insights, experiences, and expertise in various aspects of our professions. It is our hope that this meet not only serves as a platform for learning, but also an opportunity to strengthen the bonds of the professional community. Before we commence with the program, I would like to extend a heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you. Your presence here today is a tribute to the memory of Hari Sir and a testament to the legacy he's left behind. To start the proceedings, I now call upon the Chairman and Vice Chairman of PK Sriranthapana LLP, C.A. Santanakrishnan and C.A. Ramakrishnan, to accompany our dignitaries, Dr. Somanathan, C.A. V. Ranganathan, and the Secretary of SIRC, C.A. Arun, to the dais. I request you all to rise for the ICI motto song.
Yeshasuteshu jagrati Yeshasuteshu jagrati Kamam 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 Purusho nirvimana Adev shukram Brahma
Thank you. I now call Ms. Shreya Ravi Kumar to begin the event with a small prayer. Shreya Ravi Kumar is currently pursuing CA and she holds a Master's in Music.
Saraswati Namostute Shri Saraswati Namostute Varade Shri Saraswati Namostute Varade Shri Saraswati Namostute Varade Shri Saraswati Namostute Paradevate Shri Pati Gauri Pati Guru Havinute Vidiyuvate Shri Saraswati Namostute Paradevate Shri Pati Gauri Pati Guru Havinute Vidiyuvate Shri सरस्वती नमोस्तुते वासनात्रय विवर्जित वरमुनिभावित मूर्ते वासनात्रय विवर्जित वरमुनिभावित मूर्ते वासवाद्य किरणीचर वरवितरण बहुकीर्ते वासवाद्य किरणीचर वरवितरण बहुकीर्ते वासवाद्य किरणीचर वरवितरण बहुकीर्ते सयुतमुखाम्बुरुगे अद्भुत चरणाम्बुरुगे संसार विद्यापगे सकल मंत्राक्षर गुहे श्री सरस्वती नमोस्तुते वरदे परदेवते श्रीपति गौरी पति गुरु अभिनुते विधियुवते श्री सरस्वती नमोस्तुते
Thank you, Shreya, that beautiful and soulful rendition. This set an uplifting tone to this evening. In honor of our Hari sir, I would like to invite our dignitaries to join us in lighting the lamp and paying homage to Hari sir. Who are here with us today. And I request C.A. Santana Krishnan to start the proceedings.
Good evening, friends. It's a great pleasure that in honor that I extend to all of you a warm welcome in this distinguished memorial lecture meeting. Today we have the privilege of having a luminary in the field of finance and economics, Dr. Somnathan, whom I know him for the last 10-15 years. And even now, the time that I spent with him in the council, we would all like to provoke him and see that he says a comment. That comment used to be so educative to us. I don't think those days are ever going to come back. Been amazing time for us for a short period that he was there. And every question that we used to ask and we used to answer was sparkling. And with lightning speed he used to come. So it's the most appropriate that he comes and participates in my partner, late Hariharan. Hariharan was considered to be slightly junior to me in the office, but I always considered him as a mentor, more even as a father, despite the fact that he's much younger, because you could always go to him and he would always give you not only a professional advice, also advice which will balance you. I think Ranga and he have been, Ranganathan and former tax partner of E&Y, and he have been very, very close friends. It used to be such a delight for us to watch Hariharan talking to Ranga and Ranga talking to Hari. Ranga, I know that we don't have Hari, but we're very happy. That's why we said you should come and talk here. And also that Dr. Somnathan is actually a mirror image of Dr. Hariharan in terms of integrity, qualities, learning, everything, teaching everything. In fact, we had totally unconnected topic of airline industry consultation. I had gone to Harvard professor and asked him, some of the IAS officers who were studying in Harvard, I used to call him and ask him, what is the issue? But one evening, that I think all of us, 3 or 4 partners of us went to his office, he got such brilliant idea that our name was permanently established in the airline industry for the kind of suggestion that we gave. Honestly, the credit entirely goes to Dr. Somnathan. And I would also like to welcome all the Central Council members, Regional Council members, CEOs, CFOs, and very senior members, Mr. Nagnath and Lalita Balakrishnan. I'm not mentioning everybody's name, but I respect all of you and I'm so grateful that all of you are here. As a CA practicing for 45 years, I thought I should highlight some of the areas where, in line with the theme of the conference, that we can help in government providing early warning signals to detect frauds and NPAs in banks and NBFCs. In ESG is an area which is probably exclusive to chartered accountants, that they can contribute significantly in the areas of ESG. Infrastructure spending of the government is so high. Expenditure on the infrastructure, audit, etc. could be very good. And also that we are the 18th in the world in exports. I think it's important that we improve our cost and improve our position from 18th to earlier. Much more than that, sir, that we are an exporting country. There is a severe shortage of accountants across the world. So India can also export not only commodities, but also chartered accountants and accountants, not only chartered accountants, whether cost accountant, management accountant, accountants can also be exported. We can do a great job of it. And I once again thank you for coming here. End of the session, we will have a 20-minute question and answer session. I can assure you that we will not embarrass you. We would not expect you to answer all the questions, but there will be quite a bit of questions because a lot of issues are probably agitating our minds. We are going to place it before you, and I have seen you quietly saying no, but at the same time taking appropriate action. That is what we want. I'm so looking forward to not only to your lecture, but also on 20-minute question and answer session. Sir, it may even get extended to 30 minutes considering the size of the population here. Once again, I thank you very much. Let me welcome all of you, sir. Thank you.
I now request C. Ramakrishnan to introduce Mr. Ranganathan.
The world record for CV, curriculum vitae, is 47 pages. I don't know what he put there. But when the time came, I sent a WhatsApp message to Ranga, we call him Ranga. I said, please send me your CV for the memorial lecture. Back came the reply, there is no CV, my dear. So then I had to press him, I have to say something here. So he said 4 lines. So my job is very easy. I'm going to just read those 4 lines. But you all know EY Ranga, so I don't have to tell you anything. Mr. V. Ranganathan is a chartered accountant and company secretary by qualification. He started his career in insurance, and incidentally, Hariharan, our partner, related partner, also started his career in insurance. He was in the industry for the first 15 years of his career, and then moved as a partner of Ernst & Young LLP. His expertise in the area of finance, legal, taxation, restructuring, reorganization, and management advisory services. Currently, he serves as independent director on the board of 4 companies, 2 of which we are auditing, so we are happy doing that. That's all. Thanks.
I request Mr. Ranganathan to address the gathering.
Respected mother of Hari, Hari's daughter Jyotsna, and my dear friends. I have been quite allergic to speak in public in recent times, but this is one assignment that I could not bypass for 2 reasons. One is about my good old dear friend Hari, and secondly the diktat came from none other than my auditor in 2 companies, Sakala Krishnan. Frankly, this is something that I would have myself volunteered to be in this spot to talk about Hari. I'm also quite lucky and thankful that I'm not speaking on a technical subject in the presence of somebody like Dr. T.V. Swaminathan, because whatever I say, I could have gone wrong in terms of his own thinking outlook and his intelligence, which SK just explained. As Ramki said, Hari and I started in the insurance industry. So the first time when I met Hari through a common friend, that was sometime in 1984 or 85, just after I had relocated to Chennai and moved out of insurance into the corporate sector, the immediate connect was both of us knew quite a few people in the insurance industry, so that helped to create a bond between us. Hari perhaps had joined 2-3 years earlier in Keplast as a taxation person. He's a few years senior to me. But that relationship flowered over a very long period of time till his untimely demise. To talk about Hari, some of you may already know about him, the partners and members of the S&S family who anyway know about him. I'll have to give a kind of a context, I have to give a setting. Then you will understand what Hari was as a person, as a professional. One aspect I'll have to confess upfront is, Hari is actually truly a multi-dimensional, multifaceted personality. Not an exaggeration on a public platform using a very catch word. He was truly that kind of personality. But unfortunately, I can only touch upon one facet of his personality because of my own limitation. My interaction with him was purely as a fellow tax professional in the city who I looked up to often for guidance, counseling, exchanging ideas, sounding out ideas. That was my limited interface. But he had many other dimensions to his personality which I'm not getting into, but many people who had known Hari would have explored that side. He was known for his great interest in areas like spirituality, religion, music. He used to compose songs, some of which are on its own standing would have made him a great person without coming anywhere close to the subject of taxation. That was the kind of quality he had. The only snippet I can provide is whenever Hari visited my house, he would actually spend more time with my father talking on these things, and then we will just exchange a few notes and then he will leave. So he would have spent more time whenever he visited my house with my father talking on these areas. Immense knowledge, things which one would find it difficult to see in a person of that age. I'm talking about Hari when he was in his 30s. To think that he is a person of 70 years old, the way he would talk about certain things. So I'm not getting into that, I'm not competent, so I'm only talking about Hari as a tax professional. To understand Hari as a tax professional, we would need to see the times in which he was a tax professional. The 80s and the 90s were perhaps the most important watershed period with regard to the evolution of our tax system and tax laws. I'm not talking about the 70s, I'm leaving out the subsequent period for good reasons. We did have very difficult tax laws even in the 1970s, but the level of economic activity then was very less. But it was in the 80s that the economic activity picked up. More people were setting up companies, more people were setting up businesses, expanding. So the context was a period when the tax laws were like an octopus getting into everything. And that was a time when businessman and an entrepreneur would have two critical concerns with regard to managing a business. One would be the interest cost, because those were the days when public deposits were yielding 14%. If still check back to 1984-85, Sundaram Finance would have been giving 14%. And just imagine what is the kind of interest rate structure in the country. ICICI, IDBI would lend money at 14 to 16%, if not higher. So interest was a very big element of cost in running a business. The other was the tax. So these two were the most critical issues for an entrepreneur or a businessman to deal with. The interest part of it used to be managed by the promoters or by the CEOs, because that really required the liaison and the connect with the IDBI, the ICI, the LIC and the GIC and the UTI, which were really funding big projects. So the entrepreneur, the promoter, the owner would actually have the connect, and they would perhaps get the best deal by negotiation. That really moved around knowing the people, the liaison, not so much about knowledge, but getting things done. But when it came to tax, I don't think the promoter or the owners would have the wherewithal to deal with that. So they necessarily needed high quality professionals to do that. Those were times when the tax rates were very high. You had multiple taxes. You had taxes like surtax, you had taxes when you did not declare dividend, there was a tax, there was a corporate wealth tax, there was a gift tax, all kinds of taxes were there. And the laws were very complex. The whole dynamics of the interplay between accounting and taxation was in full play there. You could have one method of accounting revenue for the books, you can have a different one for your tax books. You can charge depreciation in the books in one way, you can charge depreciation in a different manner in the tax. You can capitalize the interest for books, you can charge it off for revenue. You can account your stock with one form of stock valuation in the books and different form for tax. You can all kinds of arbitrages and all kinds of possible legitimate deviations between your bookkeeping and the tax. And what would any entrepreneur would want? The entrepreneur would want the profit to be as high as possible, the tax to be as low as possible. Because that gulf was what was giving the benefit of the cost of capital. You have high profits, your market valuation is high, you are able to access equity at a very high valuation. You have very high equity valuation, naturally you are negotiating power with the institution to get loans at a lower rate works. Your credit rating is better. So these were all big interplay, and tax was perhaps a very, very important issue in the board discussions, in the decision making, with regard to any kind of an entrepreneurial step one would take. Tax was a very critical thing. You had so many exemptions for R&D, you had exemptions for export, various other things. So this is a very important aspect to understand the field of play for a professional like a Hari. This is one part. The other part of it is, you may have all these things, but if you are going to sit in a small company which does 10 crore of business, and the promoter is afraid to move this way or that way, then what challenge is there for tax person? So you have to be in the right place. You have to be in a place where the promoter is dynamic, where they are looking out for opportunities, where they want to grow the business, where they are willing to take risk and be compliant. So you need that as a field of play if you are a quality tax professional. And Hari found himself in one such place, which is the Kempla School. It was a group which was one of the most dynamic group at that point in time. They were into PVC, they got into caustic chlor and petrochemicals, then they had electronics, they got into finance, they were into property, and many such more which SK would know because he used to be the internal auditor for the group for a long time. So you really need this kind of a juice to get motivated on a daily basis. You get into the office and you know there are 20 different problems to deal with. And you have a tough taskmaster in the promoter who himself sets the bar very high. And those who had known Mr. N. Shankar in those days, he used to be the president of Association, president of Madras Chamber. I think he was a chemical engineer, but he knew more about tax and company law than anybody else. And Hari had to handle a person of that stature. If you are not good, it's hell to be in that place. But if you are good, then that's a great place to be. You have difficult regulation, complicated mechanics in taxation, and you have a demanding promoter and doing multiple different things. So Hari was placed in that. And he capitalized entirely this opportunity and flowered into an outstanding tax professional. Doing multiple things. I don't know how happy Dr. Somanathan would be if I say Hari did reverse merger, he merged loss making into profit. We know that he may not like it because he has to collect his taxes for meeting the budget. But then, if there are arbitrages in the law, as a tax professional, you would be doing seriously wrong. You start moralizing and telling your promoter, no sir, this is not a good thing. You know, last year the deficit was 6%. So how do we do something like this? You can't do that. But you have to be compliant. You have to make sure that there is no demand notice, penalty notice, prosecution notice, because if something like that happens, hell breaks loose. Just imagine a promoter in sitting in an office in Cathedral Road or in North Beach Road, getting a demand notice or a prosecution notice. First your head gets chopped off, then he goes and handles the magistrate. So it is very, very essential that you maintain the highest level of hygiene in the way you advise. You foresee potential situations that could emerge by actions that you take. So it's not a question of just looking at the law at this point in time and saying, okay, I have got a very clever idea, so here it is, you try and do it. And then 3 years later, the assessment is reopened under whatever section, then the demand notice comes with interest and all that, you know, as chartered accountants, I don't have to tell you what are the cost and consequences of not planning, taking all aspects of it. I could have gone on this, but I know that we lost a bit of time, so I wanted to be little careful about using my time. So this was a very important aspect to understand Hari as a tax professional and how he really thrived in this atmosphere and how he could make a name for himself as one of the best tax professionals during that period I would say not just in Chennai, far beyond that. Because if you ask me, having been through that phase as a counterpart of Hari in a different company, I don't think Bangalore had any such great businesses then in 1980s. All the software and all came much later. If you pick the corporate tax professional, most of them would be in Chennai. I know the quality in Bombay because I had met with a lot of people. Most of them were actually doing a very mundane clerical job because there are thousands of consultants in Bombay to whom they will go and get their job done. But here the culture was to do lot within yourself in the office. If possible, even go and appear before the commissioner, go and appear before the tribunal, which Hari used to do. In fact, Hari used to handle most of the appeals by himself. So the quality of the corporate tax professional, maybe the practicing tax professional in Bombay was of a much higher quality. There were many more. But if you ask me, the corporate tax professional, the quality that was there in Chennai at that time, some of the people then are also present here now, they would vouch for it. And that group couldn't sit idle, and then they formed a group of corporate tax professionals known as the Tax Executive Forum, of which Hari used to be one of the anchors. On a monthly basis, they would meet and discuss and exchange notes. Because this was very important to share experience and knowledge specific to the corporate and this group had. So that is one part of what I wanted to say about Hari. He was there during a period when the laws were complex, structuring was so difficult because if one company buys shares of another company, there was restriction, you can't give loans. All that adds to the problem of finding the right solution. And then you will have to navigate it. So merely knowing tax is not enough. You should know company law. There was MRTP in those days, so you set up another company, you have to get permission from MRTP. All kinds of problems. So you have to be really on top. You have to be very agile, and you have to really look for the fine points which you can take advantage of, because at the end of the day, you have to make sure that the business gets the best deal out of any situation. That was one part. The other part of Hari was not just doing the planning, but he was also very well respected in the tax office. I have known that he was the person with the highest credibility among the tax officers. So it's not that you do great planning, you short pay your advance tax, the officer calls and asks you what happened, last year you paid so much, this year it has not come. You give a nice reply to him saying that no sir, this year we have some higher R&D expenditure, we are claimed all that. So the officer is displeased with money not coming, but then he knows Hari is a kind of person who will not bluff. So that's very important to build your credibility, and then you are taken at your face value. That's extremely important. You say something to the officer, he trusts you on the face of it. And that is the kind of equity that Hari had with the tax officials. He used to be very highly regarded. I'll just give you one instance. He used to be the first name of recall for any of these top tax officers. See, in 87 or 88, the government brought up some nasty amendments to income tax. And this group of tax executive forum, with the help of one of our members who knew people in the press, we convened the press conference. We are not a chamber of commerce, we are nothing, we are not known outside to anybody. We just got a press group, and then we told them all these problems have come. We didn't write to the government, we didn't go to the chamber. We didn't think that they will take it very seriously. We thought, okay, it's just one evening we'll spend with these guys and we'll tell them. Next day, this was publicized widely in Hindu, Indian Express and Times of India. Maybe I don't think Times of India was in Chennai. Maybe these two papers. This came to the notice of the central board. So they were very surprised, because this is an entity they have not even heard of. Nobody has even heard of in Chennai. So they called the local commissioner in Chennai. There were 4 commissioners, some senior commissioner was called. What is this name referred to? And they have really lambasted these amendments. We feel very small about the whole thing. Can you please find out? So the first phone call came to Hari. Hari, what is this? Tax Executive Forum. We are not even aware. Then he said, you have put me in the spot, what do I do now? I said, no problem, I'll come with you. So if there is a blow, I will take it. We'll go to that. So that was the kind of the recall which the administration had on corporate tax. Just call Hari. So we built this brand equity. Similarly with the chambers of commerce. And the Templars group, because Mr. Shankar was himself very greatly involved in the chambers of commerce, had a culture of getting all their people, experts to work with chambers of commerce. So Hari was for many years the anchor person in the Madras Chamber of Commerce as the head of the tax committee. I used to work as co-chairman with him. He was very, very well respected in Association in Delhi. He used to be a point of reference for them on all major representations. He used to work on all representations to government for Madras Chamber, Association, and maybe a few other chambers, the Chemical Association, etc., which I was not aware of. He used to be very, very involved in these things. All these things takes time. You have to really commit your time, and it's not like you didn't have the problems to deal with which any of us have as individuals. He used to do that. And it used to be very, very high quality. See, one thing about Hari is that he is not a person who will compromise on anything. I used to tell him, why are you wasting so much time on this representation? Last year we gave something, let's give it. No. What is this? You are also saying like this. It has to be done fresh. There are some changes. You have to. He used to be very meticulous. Sometimes I used to get put off because I used to work very closely with him on these things. He will work till 8:30, 9. Anytime you go to office, you will find it. So intelligence, dedication, hard work, not giving up, and being very cheerful also. You never see him frown or anything. Anybody asks anything. The other part of Hari is the way he developed people. There are so many people who were his understudy in the Sanmar group, who today rave about the kind of exposure they got because of Hari. He was completely selfless. He never used to worry about who gets the credit, etc. He's a guy working with me. I had to do my best. He used to work with his juniors as equals. There's no question of I am the boss, nothing like that. And so many of them are out there today in practice or in other companies. They would talk very hard. See, these are the things that define the person. Not whether he finally reached a particular position and what was his last bank balance. No, those things don't matter. What matters is kind of goodwill across the spectrum of people that you used to deal with as a profession. The last thing which I would mention and then stop is my own personal benefit out of Hari. It's a very rare kind of a situation. I think it was sometime in 86, 87 budget. Those days the budget used to be presented in the evening. He called me at my office, no mobile phone at all, on the telephone. He said, Ranga, this evening you please come to Hindu office by 7 o'clock. I didn't even ask him why, but the Hindu office is not far from office. I said, yeah, I'll go there. So I landed up at Hindu office. First time I'm visiting there, I asked the front desk, Hariharan, wait for him. He came. He said, come inside. So I went inside and we went to a room where Mr. S. Rajaratnam and Mr. Suresh Rao were sitting. And a lot of papers. The budget paper was just coming from the teleprompter because Hindu had that access. So those days you can't get the budget paper on the same day. Next day somebody has to fly in and bring it from Delhi next morning. Everything was coming through the teleprompter and these three people were sitting and working on the budget because Mr. Rajaratnam used to write in Hindu the following day on the budget. And he said, here is your set of papers, these sections, you sit and you write. This is my mind. So at that time I didn't realize. But okay, it's a thing we did. And of course we got excellent food in Hindu canteen, so we had food. At 9:30, 10 o'clock we went away. Then 3-4 years thereafter this continued. But why I'm mentioning this is, that was such an opportunity for me, because I was also quite the early stages of my career, to sit with somebody like Mr. Rajaratnam and Mr. Suresh Rao, work on a budget, and nobody else outside knows the, see, you know the budget, you know the tax changes, you don't get the finance, the bill and the thing that comes along with it, notes on clauses and all that. That comes only the next day taxman book comes. You get it 6-7 hours earlier, but you are able to sit and work on it. Those days it used to make a big, it gives you a kick. And he was willing to share that opportunity with somebody like that. That really helped me to know Mr. Rajaratnam well, know Mr. Suresh Rao well. So he was a very different kind of a person. Often professionals would like to hoard knowledge. They would not want to cede the ground to somebody, give the spotlight or whatever, limelight to somebody. Completely different kind of person. So what was his mantra for success? This is humility, hard work. He was the hardest working person in any room. You put 10 people in a room, Hari would be the hardest. And this big faith in certain things which I don't understand, but he used to understand something is driving all this. So he used to have that kind of a motivation coming from somewhere else. And a wonderful family background, heritage, that kind of culture and all. So thanks for this opportunity to remember my good friend Hari. Thanks SK and Ramki for calling me to do this. Thanks to all of you.
We thank the past president, Mr. Bhupati, for being here with us today. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you. Before we proceed to the special address, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to C.A. Ranganathan sir for sharing his reflections of his personal and professional relationships with Hari sir. He provided us with valuable insight into the qualities that made Hari sir the exceptional leader that he was. Someone who never sought the spotlight himself, but instead enlighten us with his infinite knowledge and wisdom. Ranganathan sir, thank you for your willingness to share your memories with us here today. It's through testimonial like yours that we continue to learn, continue to draw inspiration from Hari sir. I now request Mr. C. Ramakrishnan to introduce a person who needs no introduction, Dr. T.V. Somanathan.
That's nice. Introduce a person who doesn't need an introduction. I wish I was Shankar Mahadevan and I could recite breathless to you. Because I was looking at this biodata which is given to me and the qualifications Mr. Swaminathan has. Anyway, I'll try my best. Sir, in the ET Awards 2002, you said, cricketers sometimes benefit from the errors of umpires, but they don't comment on those decisions. We want to assure you, sir, there was no error at all here. Santanakrishnan proposed, the entire office agreed immediately that you are the most appropriate person for this occasion. Dr. T.V. Swaminathan holds a PhD in economics as well as MA Bachelor of MA Economics, BCom Honours degree. He has completed the Executive Development Program of Harvard Business School and is a qualified chartered and cost accountant and company secretary. In my days, all three used to be a very big thing. And now comes the Shankar Mahadevan part. AC England and Wales, FCCA London, FCMA London, Fellow of the Governance Institute London, ACMA, ACS India, and so on and so forth. He joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1987, ranked second All India, and was awarded the gold medal for the best IAS professional of his batch. He is currently Finance Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. He was previously Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, 2010-11, and Joint Secretary, Additional Secretary to the Prime Minister from 2015 to 2017. I am told that the Prime Minister personally selected him. He was earlier worked as a variety of senior positions in the government of the Tamil Nadu state. Sir, thank you very much for the Chennai Metro Rail. He was the founder MD of CMRL. In 1996, he joined the World Bank, Washington, through the Young Professionals Program as financial economist in the East Asia and Pacific Regional Vice Presidency. In 2000, he became one of the bank's youngest sector managers, which he was appointed as manager of the Budget Policy Group. 2011, his services were sought by the World Bank again, and he served as director from 2011 to 2015. He has the same qualities as SK mentioned as Hari, like humility, piety, blemishless integrity, and vast knowledge. Sir, we are not able to release the Shukriya song we did in the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, but we will add our heartful thank you for accepting the invitation to come all the way to Chennai. Thank you very much, sir.
I request Mr. Somanathan sir to address the gathering.
Mr. Ranganathan, Mr. Santanakrishnan, Mr. Ramakrishnan, Mr. Arun, family members of Mr. S. Hariharan, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The word saint is usually used in the context of persons of religion or social reformers, and sometimes even in the context of people who directly interact with people like doctors or nurses or teachers. They are sometimes described as saintly. It's not a word that is normally associated with either chartered accountants or with civil servants like me, let me hasten to add. But I find that there on the projection there, he has been described as a saint in the profession. And the description that we heard of him from Mr. Ranganathan is something which confirms that, and it is therefore, I would say, an honor for me to be invited to deliver a lecture in honor of a person who is so great. So I deem it an honor to be invited. I must clarify at the outset that I am speaking in my personal capacity, and the views that I may express here are not necessarily the views of the Government of India, and they are my personal views. So memorial lectures are usually somewhat boring affairs, and the most interesting part comes either before the lecture or after the lecture, depending on whether it's a high tea before or a dinner after. And in today's case, the most interesting part is already over. I'm acutely conscious of this, and so I've tried to choose a topic where I can hopefully keep it at least slightly interesting for you. The Indian economy is changing, and it will continue to change in the next 25 years, which the Prime Minister has called the Amrit Kal, or in Tamil, the Amuda Kalam. This is the time when India aims to become a developed country by 2047. It's the period of 25 years from now from last year till 2047. So I have tried to cast my mind's eye on what are some of the major changes that will happen in the Indian economy, which some of them have already started, some will acquire pace as we go on, and what effect would they have on the accounting profession. So this is essentially what I am attempting to do. So the first change that I see is the increasing influence of what is being called artificial intelligence. You'll see a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, and particularly the effect of what is called generative artificial intelligence. So I don't want to get into the technicalities of artificial intelligence, nor am I competent to do so, but today one can tell ChatGPT to paint a picture of this meeting hall in the style of Rembrandt, and it will come up with something which will be of this hall and which will have some or at least many of the elements of a Rembrandt painting, and it will do it in a few minutes, less than a few minutes. If you say, sing this song in the style of Shemangudi Srinivas Iyer, it might do it. I don't know whether it will do that. That I have not checked. I have checked that it can do the Rembrandt painting. So, and theoretically it will be able to do it. If you feed it enough versions of Shemangudi Srinivas Iyer's songs, then it will be able to do it. Of course, it is able to do it on the basis of studying a vast amount of available past material. It is not creative. It is basically studying the past and then using that data, but using huge volumes of that data to arrive at patterns and then use those patterns to generate something new which is based on those past patterns. So it is not capable of imagining new things. However, because it is capable of meticulous learning of everything that is fed into it, leaving nothing out. It never forgets. It considers everything, including what is invalid. It doesn't distinguish between correct and wrong, or accurate and inaccurate. It swallows everything and then is able to come out with outputs that you desire. And it's a very, very powerful tool. It will get powerful, even more powerful as time goes on. So this technology has a specific implication for the economy and for the people in this room, which is that automation of business processes can be much more potent with artificial intelligence than it was without artificial intelligence. And I'm told the largest effect will be on things like how much it costs to do coding of something, how much it costs to prepare new software, how quickly you can automate a process, how quickly you can change a process. And these are things that are likely to be substantially affected by the growth of generative artificial intelligence. And so the point which I am coming to is that this can potentially replace quite a bit of the work that is done today by accountants and auditors. It's one of the trends that is coming. I think I need to point it out. The second important change is the much greater attention that will be paid to the issue of climate change in the management of not just the Indian economy, but by governments across the world in terms of how the economy is managed and how policies are decided upon and evolved. Now, you will all be aware that this issue was discussed extensively at the recent G20 summit and in the various discussions that went on before that. Let me give you maybe a slightly longish description of what the problem is so that you understand the context. The industrial economies have over the years got to a position where they are very intensive in energy use and of course in the use of many other products and chemicals. So the effect of these, the growth or the development of the today developed countries has been to generate a lot of gases which have created pollution and affected the ozone layer and so on, but also to generate a lot of carbon dioxide. And this carbon produces global warming by increasing the temperature because it acts like a sweater on the earth. It's like wearing a coat around yourself. It warms up the environment. To prevent further global warming, we have to reduce carbon emissions. This statement I'm making is not a rhetorical or a theoretical statement, it's a fact. To reduce global warming or prevent further global warming, we will have to reduce carbon emissions. This is a matter of physics. It doesn't require much debate. Carbon emission is directly proportional to the use of fossil fuels like coal and oil, which are essentially, they are hydrocarbons. So it is carbon which is at the center of these fuels. Per capita energy consumption is much higher in developed countries, and as a country like India grows richer, it tends to consume more energy. We become closer in energy consumption to the developed countries. And if the energy that is consumed by developing countries is based on fossil fuels, then carbon emission will increase and it will further exacerbate global warming which has already taken place. Of course, theoretically, one solution which no one has proposed, but some have in a silent way in the richer countries have not expressed it, but it remains at the background, is if all the poor countries remain poor, then energy use will not rise and global warming can be reduced or kept to the minimum. But obviously this policy of avoiding warming by keeping poor countries poor is not something that at least the poor countries will agree to. So it's hardly an acceptable solution. So, as I said, when countries like India become richer, it will inevitably increase energy usage. So then if we have to combine the development of such countries with reducing or at least containing global warming, there are essentially two ways in which it can be done. They're not mutually exclusive. The first is that the countries which are already developed and have high levels of energy use must reduce their carbon emissions by shifting the fuel mix that they use from carbon emitting fuels to others, particularly renewable energy. Of course, nuclear energy, by the way, is also not carbon emitting. Second, the developing countries that are yet to attain those levels of income should use only or mainly renewable energy or nuclear energy for their further growth. You will notice that in the Western debate on this, nuclear energy is not mentioned much. That's again for various political reasons. Nuclear energy is discouraged, particularly in Europe. Of course, in Japan. In Japan it is understandable. It's not so understandable in Europe. But it's these are some of the debates which don't happen as to the role of nuclear energy in avoiding climate change. It's a debate that only happens in certain countries. It doesn't happen in most of the otherwise very voluble Western countries. But moving to renewables or to nuclear energy is highly capital intensive. The key financial issue therefore, and now I am gradually coming back to the point, the key financial issue is who is to bear the cost of this energy transition and in what proportion. So is it to be borne by those who have created the warming in the first place, which is the developed countries, or should they remain where they are and those who now want to develop should completely develop on renewable energy and bear the cost of avoiding global warming. This is the essence of this debate or discussion. It's a very civil and polite discussion, but at the heart of it are a lot of real issues. The developing countries are arguing that the developed countries who caused the global warming all these years should give substantial financial aid to the developing countries. But in practice, the developed countries' volume of talk and academic writing greatly exceeds the action and financing. So we have to deal with this problem. Meanwhile, the European Union has introduced a carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM. So what is this CBAM or mechanism? The mechanism is essentially a customs duty of the 1987 style it's a notification which says there will be a duty of, they don't call it a customs duty because that would be not compatible with the WTO rules. So in a form of legal arbitrage that Mr. Ranganathan was talking about, they don't call it a customs duty. But it is in essence and in substance a customs duty. But it's a customs duty that is on selected energy intensive products, and it is calibrated to the quantum of carbon used in the manufacture of those products. So this CBAM incidentally is to take effect from October the 1st of this year in the European Union on certain products. It's a gradual implementation, but it's beginning to take effect from October the 1st. After digressing for so long, let me finally come to where the role of accountants is here. I'm predicting that the world will see more and more steps like the European Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and these mechanisms, whatever they are called, will require careful accounting for the carbon usage, what is carbon, what is not, what proportion of it goes into which product. There will be a lot of common costs, joint costs, things will need to be apportioned. What portion of is the tax on the carbon part of the cost or not, and there are going to be a number of issues. It is going to be a paradise for the accounting profession if these mechanisms become more widely used. So the second trend that I've just referred to is a growth area for the accounting profession.
You will be asked to provide for a certification for it?
Definitely, certification, yes. And to do the certification, you'll have to calculate it. You'll have to account for it. So you first account for it, then audit it, then certify it, and hopefully do it in a true and fair manner. So all of this will have to come. The third economic trend which I can foresee is an expansion of credit, by which I mean lending, in the Indian economy. In India, credit to the private sector is approximately 55% of the GDP. In China, it is above 180%. Now, I would not say that the Chinese level is either healthy or desirable. It is not. Let me say that that's not a goal that we should seek. However, one can argue that India's level is too low, and that perhaps it should rise to something like 100 to 120% of GDP, which will accelerate investment and growth, because it will mean that projects which would otherwise not have enough capital to start can start if they get more credit. And this is something that has been identified as an area where India perhaps needs to increase in terms of its credit to GDP ratio. But the challenge is to expand the volume of credit without expanding bad debts, or without expanding what are politely called NPAs, which used to be called doubtful debts, now are called NPAs. So these have to expand. So credit has to expand, but if you have a disproportionate expansion of NPAs, then this cycle will quickly grind to a halt, and you will come back to a situation where banks have no money to lend. Expanding credit is very easy. Being in the government, I know this, but expanding it with good credit quality is very difficult. So this is the twin problem that we have. We want to expand it with good credit quality. If credit is to expand without bad and doubtful debts, then accountants and auditors have a critical role to play. Their role will be in ensuring truly true and fair accounting, not just by banks, but also by borrowers. So true and fair view of things on the borrower side, and a true and fair view of what is happening in the bank and in the NBFCs and in the financial institutions. This will be absolutely critical if India is to have a calibrated expansion of credit in the economy without stoking up problems. If you create an expansion of credit, follow it by an expansion of bad debts, then the credit expansion will grind to a halt, and then you will not get what you intend to get. So this expansion of credit will expand the demand for accountants if the job is done well. Otherwise, it will grind to a halt, and then the demand will go away. So this is something which is the third trend. The fourth trend that I foresee is a major expansion in the number of income taxpayers. And I expect this. Remember, India's population growth is now tapering off. What is not very well known is there are fewer children in Indian schools today than 10 years ago. So at certain levels of population, we are actually declining. India is not an ever-expanding population. There are fewer school children today than 10 years ago. The stage is coming where some schools will have to be closed because there are not enough children justifying their existence. But as India becomes richer, the number of income taxpayers, despite the population plateau, will increase continuously for many years to come at least the rate of GDP growth. And depending on what we do with the exemption brackets, it will grow probably at least at the real GDP growth rate. And if we don't expand the brackets, it may grow at the nominal GDP growth rate. So I foresee an annual expansion of at least 6 to 7% minimum in the number of income taxpayers over the next quarter of a century. And this too will obviously increase, as Mr. Ranganathan very poignantly pointed out, the demand for good accountants either in industry or in practice. The fifth trend which I foresee is again not very difficult for you to grasp. It will be an increase in the number of listed companies. And these listed companies obviously have much enhanced compliance requirements as opposed to non-listed companies. And you may also see a greater level of corporatization of companies vis-a-vis sole proprietorships and partnerships. These two are demand-creating trends as far as the accounting profession is concerned. The sixth trend which I foresee is an increase in India's influence in other developing countries. So today India is the world's most populous country. We are not the second most populous country anymore. We are the world's fastest growing major economy. Regardless of which GDP figure you believe, we are the fastest growing. So you can have different versions of GDP, whichever calculation you take, we are the fastest growing, largest economy without any dispute. The dispute is only about whether we are much faster, only slightly faster, only little less fast, etc. But we are the fastest. I think nobody disputes that. We are also now, in terms of aggregate size, not in per capita terms, but as an aggregate size, we are the world's fifth largest economy, and we are very likely to become the third largest economy within 5 years. This will open up many new economic opportunities for Indian companies and Indian personnel in the rest of the world, especially in developing countries. And with it will come many new international opportunities for Indian accountants. The seventh trend that I would like to refer to is increased indigenization of manufacturing under the Make in India initiative, and also because of global trends. There is the Make in India initiative on one hand, which is a conscious government policy. There is the trend of deglobalization across the world for various geopolitical reasons, which also means that more and more countries want to do onshoring, and India is no exception. So this has created and will create new opportunities for accountants in certifying local content in government procurement, which is a specific new need that has come up, because under the Make in India policy, the government does not procure goods which don't have a minimum local content, except in rare cases. And who decides whether it has minimum local content or not? Accountants. So a certification is required as to what is the local content in the products that the government buys. Similarly, various kinds of certification are required for the production-linked incentive schemes, because there are criteria which each company has to meet in order to earn that production-linked incentive. And those two are both measured and certified by accountants. An eighth trend will be the urbanization of India. Tamil Nadu is already India's most urbanized state, but many other states will reach this level, and Tamil Nadu will probably go further than it is now. This urbanization trend will lead to a rapid growth in the importance of municipalities. Far more money will flow to local bodies, and the accounting needs of these local bodies will grow very quickly. Today, for many of them, their accounts are kept in very rudimentary and perfunctory form. But when the flows become very substantial, as they are likely to become, they will need to become more sophisticated in their accounting, and that will require the services of qualified accountants. So I have referred to 8 economic changes which are likely to occur. So let me summarize them in terms of their impact on the accounting professions. The first trend, expansion of artificial intelligence, will shrink the market for accountants globally, including in India. The second, greater focus on climate change. The third, expansion of credit. The fourth, increase in the number of taxpayers. The fifth, growth in the number of listed companies. The sixth, increased international influence. And the seventh, make in India and indigenization. And the eighth, growth of municipalities and local bodies, are all likely to expand the market for Indian accountants. Not only are economic trends going to be favorable, barring the one technical change on artificial intelligence, I, as an Indian accountant, know that Indian accountants are second to none in skills. So therefore, let me at this juncture say that I see tremendous potential for the Indian accounting profession. And I'm not saying this to be polite to you, I'm saying it because I believe it. However, to make the most of this potential, I think the profession will need to focus on 5 areas of improvement. I call these, just since it is a lecture, I should also display some verbal sophistry. So I have coined 5 terms for them. I call these the challenge of expectations, the challenge of reputation, the challenge of diversification, the challenge of articulation, and the challenge of translation. So these 5 challenges, I think, will need to be met to make the most of these opportunities which are going to come. The opportunities are there. The first issue is the gap between, on the one hand, the public or regulator or government's expectation of what is the role of an accountant or an auditor, and on the other hand, the official definition of the role of an accountant or auditor by the law or by the accounting profession itself. When an auditor certifies something, he obviously relies on various management assurances. He uses a careful wording to signify the limited scope of the work which he has done. We have relied on the management is responsible for these accounts, we have relied on them, and we are only doing this. We are not doing anything. I'm being facetious, but that is the wording of the, if you read that very carefully, it says, see, ella avanna, na ido paathu kayil potirukken. So this is the tenor of the certification in the audit report. But when something is later found wrong with the accounts, when something is found wrong with the accounts, regardless of this disclaimer type certificate, the reputation of the profession still gets affected and damaged in the eye of the public, the regulator, and the government. So this is just a fact. I am not saying that it's right, wrong, should it happen, should it not happen, should not the public have a better understanding of the actual role of the auditor. We are watchdogs, not bloodhounds. All these things, yes, but unfortunately the public doesn't think of you only as a watchdog or not a bloodhound and so on. So they have a conception. The public elects the government appoints the regulator. So the government will respond to the public and the regulator will respond to the government. So it's a chain where if the expectations gap is so large, there will be continuous incursions into what the accountant should or should not do. So there is a gap in the expectations. Somewhere this gap will have to be addressed, and I don't know how to address it. I'm just leaving you with the thought that there is a gap and it needs to be addressed. The second issue is of trust and reputation. Trust in accountants needs to improve. But let me give you an example. Recently, a firm known for both its accounting and consulting services was involved in an assignment for the Ministry of Finance. While doing a consultancy assignment for the government, they shared confidential information on what was going on in the government with certain other clients of theirs in order to help them make a pecuniary gain. This actually happened. Now let me just throw it to you. Any guess as to the name of the company? Okay, good. So it happened in Australia, not in India. And the firm is not some, I'm making up these names. It's not Chellaswamy and Chowdhury or Raghavaya and Rathore. No, it was PricewaterhouseCoopers in Australia. So this is what has happened. It's a very recent, well-known case.
When it happens in India, we don't detect it also.
That's true. That's true. I fully agree. So this problem is not confined to India. But if India is to be a world leader, we cannot console ourselves by saying that they are all equally bad, or we are just as bad as everyone else. That's not going to be enough if we want to be world leaders. A stronger adherence to professional ethics will be crucial in improving the reputation of the accounting profession. Now, of course, accountants are part of the society they live in, and if many of the clients are unethical, there are limits to what a professional can do. I do understand that. I mean, I live in the real world, and I know that there are unethical people in government, there are unethical people in tax departments, there are unethical people in regulators. So I understand the atmosphere in which you function. But nevertheless, I am flagging this issue. That I also know that in recent years, many new regulatory burdens have been added to the accounting profession, and I do sympathize with the challenges that they may pose to you. I am not competent to suggest solutions to this issue. I can only say this: an increase in the demand for accounting professionals will partly depend, or in fact substantially depend, on an increase in the reputation of the accounting profession. This I think is it. Now, how to surmount this gap, expectations gap, reputation, is something that you will be better able to think through than I would be sitting in the government. I would therefore suggest, and this is a genuine and practical suggestion, that you yourself should come up with ways of doing this. How do we address this issue, the practical issues of ethics and so on, including methods for insulating yourself from wrongful pressures and strengthening audit independence. How can this be done? I may not know the answer. You will probably come up with a more workable answer than I can think of sitting in the government. Now, of course, some of your thoughts may need government action, in which case please propose them to us, informally, formally, write to us, advocate for them. But if you do that internal cogitation and come up with how to improve ethics in the profession practically, I'm not saying on some, I think writing a longer code of ethics or saying we should swear this doesn't work. We have to be very practical about this. Now, how will this happen? I don't know. So I confess that I don't know, but I would like to hear from you. And when I say me, I'm just saying that officers of the government, if you start making suggestions, somebody will hear them. As the example he gave of the Tax Executives Forum, that they called up to say, what is this? Somebody will call up if they see good ideas being advocated. So I think that is something which I would request you to do. The third issue is consultancy. And it is the issue of diversification into consultancy. Too few of the Indian firms do management consultancy work. Even consultancies awarded by the government and by the public sector go to only a select few consulting firms. May I suggest some deep thinking among these non-select, non-few to think about what can be done to create more good quality Indian firms with consultancy practices, with substantial consultancy practices, so as to reduce the oligopoly in the consultancy business. There is an oligopoly in the consultancy business, it is neither good for the country nor is it good for the profession. So this is something which again needs some thinking to be done as to why and how do you diversify from mere accounting, audit, certification, tax into consultancy. Management consultancy on things beyond finance, things beyond accounting. So, and what I would like to see is how soon can we have a Chellaswamy and Chowdhury or Raghavaya and Rathore as one of the top global firms. I would be keen to see that. I would love to see, one very Indian sounding name as a top 5. Instead of big 4, you would have a big 5. With one of them having a very non-Anglo name like this. It would really be nice.
Suggesting an idea to the Big Four to change that name.
I don't think they can change. Name change will not do it. That's why I said make it 5. I didn't say change the names of the 4. I said we want a 5th. And the 5th should be indigenous. But then again, but quite seriously, I don't think the name change can happen so long as you want to ride on the multinational value of that brand. If you become Chellaiah and Chowdhury until you also have acceptability of Chellaiah and Chowdhury in the US, UK, Africa, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, it's difficult. So today these names are being brought in because when a multinational comes in, it feels it needs that name on its report in order to be credible with its shareholders back there. But these things will change as India becomes larger, as our influence in the global economy increases. It will change gradually. But it can become less gradual if we pay attention to this problem and do something to accelerate the process. So, therefore, okay, let me move to my final set of challenges. I think the profession needs to focus on its language skills in terms of better articulation and presentation in English. So I think this is, by the way, this is something directly connected to the consultancy work. In consultancy work, you are not signing a standard, pre-designed set of words, nor are you just saying what every other auditor will say in terms of the summary. You are saying something very different each time. So being clear, being articulate, being able to explain in English, I'll come to something else later, but in English is something where I think chartered accountants can work on this better. There is a perception in industry that the MBAs do a better job of presentation than the chartered accountants. Even though the substance of the chartered accountant may be deeper, the MBA is broader, chartered accountant is deeper, but the depth needs to be accompanied with better articulation. So this is the challenge of articulation. And finally, I mentioned municipalities. The Indian economy is going to become the 3rd largest economy soon. Working in Indian languages will increasingly be important for the accounting profession. And it is not enough to know just English, and certainly not enough to know just English and Hindi. Because the work relating to governments, state governments, local bodies, municipalities, which is a growth area, will require a working knowledge of those languages, and even more importantly, you will need to develop standard glossaries for important accounting terms, legal terms, so that you can work in these languages. If you are asked to audit a municipality's books, and if those are in Tamil, then what is true and fair view in Tamil? Because these are legal implications. See, it will be in Tamil and the legislation will be in English, but the litigation will be in Tamil. So you will need to improve language skills. This is another challenge. And with that, let me say in conclusion that I thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts, and I wish you and your profession a very bright future. Thank you.
I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our esteemed chief guest for delivering an insightful and thought-provoking speech. We're truly honored to have the privilege of hearing your valuable insights. The thoughts and discussions today were not only informative, they were transformative. It challenged our perspectives and it broadened our horizons. It is not every day that we have an opportunity to hear from someone of your stature, and for that, sir, we're extremely grateful. Thank you for your time and contribution. Now I invite the audience to take this opportunity to engage with the chief guest. If you have any questions for Dr. Somanathan, please raise your hand. Please note that there will be no follow-up questions. Those who wish to give written queries may do so. Our volunteers are in your midst. They will be circulating papers.
So first, I should take up the opportunity. First time after many, many years, I had a very, very positive view of the profession and the opportunity. I was telling you, I used to be scared of coming into Brahman Company, Brahmaya Hall. It used to be gloomy and people used to come and abuse the professions. I didn't go. I'm very, very grateful to you. I do recognize the presence of Mr. Bhupati. It's so nice that I started my council membership only with you. I'm so happy that you're here. So I'm going to ask you a question, and please don't mistake me. And it's not for me, it's for the profession as a whole, for members here. At least I can certainly say, many of them can say, we are all slowly becoming first Indian multinational accounting firm. So I must tell you that we certainly can claim, and there are many who are going to claim. So we have one or two issues. Thank you very much for pointing out that there is going to be a credit expansion, and there are going to be so many opportunities for chartered accountants. Today, what is most dangerous, I'm talking to you as the crime is happening. So, is that there is no transparency in appointment of statutory auditors of banks, whereas insurance companies and central government, we have a government audits. CAG has got a clear process. That process is followed. For the last 3 years, bank audit has been completely decentralized to management, without a process being in place, with absolutely no transparency whatsoever, either in the statutory audit or in the bank audit. Sir, I have walking audit tools here. Mr. Naganathan is here. John Morris is here. Mr. Srinivasan is here. So I'm sure that Mr. Srinivasan is here. There are I think Sundar Srini is there. There are extraordinarily good firms of chartered accountants. Sir, we don't want audit. But the fact remains that we're not even called. How can, complete failure both in the audit committee and the chairman. But I was warned that I won't get any audit. I don't want audit. I don't want bank audits. I'm here to represent the profession. Let the profession get this. Because as I'm talking to you, we got messages saying audit is over. One more thing you should see, sir. The audit committee chairman is not given any freedom. Audit committee chairman is given a list and he chooses, he puts his chapa there. There is a failure of process there. The third issue that happens is that you will follow the managing director or the chairman of the bank. He's followed that he was an earlier executive director, where he was the auditor, will come back to the chairman auditor here. This is something which is serious, and there is no point in blaming the profession if something goes wrong. Something will go wrong because there is no independence, there is no conflict of fully conflicted. I think, I know, sir, I don't want to embarrass you to answer for this, but the action has to be taken today, not even tomorrow, because tomorrow morning, if this news doesn't come out, everybody will finalize the audit, and even if the audit is appointed, sir, if the audit is completed, we would request the Central Vigilance Commission to look at how this appointment was made. Sir, 8 people were selected. You say that 2 people should be of height of 6 feet. I have no problem. 2 partners should be dark. I know the criteria is dark. But there is no criteria here. The list is taken and somebody is appointed. So I thought I must make a request. Knowing you that I have already come and represented on several occasions, I thought I should tell this. Second, sir, the other day, Nirmala Sitharaman, your finance minister, spoke saying, please tell us which companies are avoiding tax. We'll go after them, whichever country it is. Sir, please go to your nationalized banks, go to your public sector banks, look for tax evasion. Don't waste your time in looking at all other places. For TDS, they will not deduct because they are a public sector undertaking. They will not, where mandatorily tax has to be deducted. If you question all this, then you can't maintain, you won't get a bank audit. I have risked and said I don't want bank audit, therefore I am representing to you. I'm doing it on behalf of all of you. I'm sure all of you would agree. And I think some transparency and fairness has to be brought into that. Thank you very much, sir. Also, sir, one more thing which I want to do. Then look at the government, the CAG's appointment. You have never felt a scandal in government audits? You look at CAG's appointment. Nowhere you will find a scandal because there is a process, they follow it. Immediate action is taken, sir. Look at insurance companies. There is a regulator who is strong. Today, RBI was a wonderful, 3 years back this did not happen, sir. We had everything. Suddenly Reserve Bank of India decided, I will give everything to bank's own management. Where is the bank's own management? There is no shareholder, there is no stakeholder, there is nobody who is interested in the bank except his own position to safeguard it for the next 1.5 to 2 years. That's what I thought I should tell you, sir. I will leave it to you to take appropriate call on it. Somebody wanted to talk about mutual fund industry, somebody wanted to talk about Nidhi. Is there anybody who's going to join? Are you going to have a representation? Not representation, would you like to mention? Come.
I have some other questions. I have some questions on other ways.
Please, please, all, everybody. Jayant, why don't you? Jayant?
On the question that, or on rather, it's not a question, it's a criticism that you have given.
No, suggestion, sir. I don't even. Sir, we respect this
I
government.
don't know. I take it very seriously. I would be much obliged if you could communicate it to me in writing.
I will do that, sir. I will do that, sir.
Take it up.
I will certainly do that, sir. It is not a criticism, it's a factual position. As I said, as a cyber crime is happening, I'm telling you. So I don't want crime to happen. And
The
we have
government
made
structurally has difficulty in handling anything that is hearsay, unless it is accompanied by a...
I must also tell you, the whole audience has got great respect for this government. We have not seen a government like this who's made such a change. But why should poor chartered accountants do that? Chartered accountants should also be part of this growth. That's why I'm making this request. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I am a very close friend of Hariharan. I was also part of the tax executive forum in those days. Of course, I am now in Bangalore and I come all the way for this. I have come all the way for this meeting because of my admiration for Hari and his family and his wife and all that. I know them very well. Now, sir, first you will talk about chartered accountants, particularly this NFRA. NFRA has become a bugbear for everybody. And a lot of people are giving up audits because they feel that NFRA has now pouncing only on the auditors and not on the management. We feel that the directors and the independent directors and all the people, they are equally, or they are the people who have to be first hauled up and not the auditors. You take the case of Coffee Day, which is a Bangalore-based company. The proprietor committed suicide. Now the auditor has been fined 1 crore by the NFRA. Now the company is rehabilitated with the spouse of the person who died. Now the poor auditor, he would have committed some lapses, but it is a very big political family, which we all know. So how the auditor could have managed every situation in that particular company? And this, unfortunately, the auditor has been fined 1 crore. And all the other people are also fined 10 lakhs and others. I think the NFRA is overreaching and hitting on the auditors and killing the audit profession. This is my view. That is the first point which I would like to place it before you. Then there are certain other things which I would like to, which is again, as a tax professional, we always feel that certain practices now which are followed by government are slightly, I would say, not in the same way in which we have experienced in the past.
I want to clarify, I said at the beginning, I'm here in my personal capacity.
No,
I'm not here to answer grievances of government, etc. But I'm happy to listen to you.
Yes, sir. Just 2-3 points only, not much. One of the points which is coming up is suddenly on the date of the passing of the budget, some amendments are introduced without any backup or background. Like we have seen the equalization levy, we have seen certain other things like the GST tribunal and all that. On the last day it is coming. We wish and we request that if the government also can give us a background note, even if it's a short one, that would be very nice, so that we can understand what is the thing which is happening on the last day of the budget passing. That is one request. And then there are certain small things like, for example, these startup companies. The startup companies today, when we file the return, we find that it is also subject to book profit tax. So today, on the one hand, you are getting a tax holiday, but at the same time, 150 JV is applicable. And therefore, we feel that, look, what is happening here? There is some sort of a contradiction which is there, which according to me could be avoided. One more point is about the energy conservation data. Even the smallest company has to give the data. Okay, forget about Reliance and other big companies. They can, all the data is very relevant and it can be very useful for the government. But even the smallest company, it has to give the data, and I'm not very sure that the MCA or anybody else is looking at the data for companies which are there in rural areas.
MCA is not looking at it, but others are looking at it.
I'm not very sure. Such small companies, I don't know whether it has got any relevance. The last point which I would like to say is about the amendment regarding joint development agreement, which is a very popular thing, and also some redevelopment of it.
I regret to interrupt you here, but frankly, this is not a pre-budget tax suggestion.
I'll leave it.
If there are any comments on the topic of the day, I'll be happy to listen. But in the interest of others wanting to ask questions,
Okay.
I'm not here today to respond to proposals for the next budget, which in any case will be an interim budget, by the way. So,
Okay, so we'll leave it.
One issue with reference to Nidhi company, sir. Just one.
Good evening. I'm Jayant Krishnanagan. I'm a company secretary. And thank you so much, sir, for the special address. Rather, it was a vision statement from you for not just chartered accountants, but also for company secretaries like us. Thanks a lot, sir. So my query here is with regards to the Nidhi companies. A lot of Nidhi companies which have mandated that they have to file an NDH4 form, which is a form that is filed specifically to ensure that they are compliant with the new regulations that have come in 2019. For the last 2.5 years, despite multiple representations by the Nidhi chambers, a lot of companies which are 100 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, which have not been getting their approvals, because of which it is directly impacting their business. The approvals are just pending with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs.
It just lies at the system, so it has to be approved.
Neither are they responding nor are they asking any further queries. Thank you so much.
Shibriya?
could I respond to some of them before we?
Yes.
So, on the points made by the gentlemen here, I do not know the specifics of the case, the coffee day. I mean, I've read about it in the same newspapers that everybody else has read about. I am not here, I don't know the details of what NFRA has done, why they have done it. But I will say that there is a slight, again, expectations gap when it comes to saying that it was a very politically important family. What else could the auditor do except make a mistake? That somehow, that expectation in law, as a civil servant, I work under political control. But if I sign something wrong, I am responsible. I work under minister. But if I sign something wrong, and if the CBC or the CBI or the court comes to find out, I am responsible. It's not the political executive. So that the thing that one should be realistic enough to know that somebody is working under a political pressure and therefore one should be lenient, that somehow there is an I don't know what is correct. I am saying that NFRA may not take the view that you are taking. So before signing, perhaps it is better to resign the assignment and say I won't sign because I can't sign. It's a very politically sensitive case. Please give it to some better politically sensitive auditor than me. So this is that because I am not able to sympathize with the statement that I agree with you that management also should be acted upon. That point is well taken. But don't act on the auditor. I don't think if I were in NFRA, I may not be sympathetic.
But finally, the board of directors.
That point is well taken. They have not done it. If you are saying that, that's a relevant point. Let me see.
We'll do it later. We'll go back. There are a few other questions which I'll ask. Anybody else? Yes. Sir.
Good evening, Dr. Solnathan. Wonderful to know about your academia background. I was invited for this conference, but I was wondering that I'm not an accountant, so what am I going to do? Just because seniors invited me, I thought, okay, let me come. Anyway, I thought it was going to be a waste of time. The reason I'm saying this is that I run an AI company. It was very gratifying to know that you spoke about the importance of AI in accounting, because we face a lot of headwinds in convincing people, listen, AI is going to take over. So far, I have not been able to kind of give them an assurance, look, it's now or never, you guys got to, automate it. So it was very gratifying to hear from you, and thank you so much for, saying these in small words. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to know you, sir.
Last question. Last two questions. So with that we'll stop. Yes. Please.
There's nobody from the back.
Anybody in the back? You want to ask question? I think Glenn came. Okay.
After this.
Okay, four more. With four we close.
Actually, very short submissions.
Mike on it.
Check.
So I have three very short submissions and congrats on a brilliant lecture. The first is on scaling of firms. There are other good firms in the country as well. But obviously there's a huge gap between the turnover of the top 5 vis-a-vis the rest of the market. So it would be good if the government can consider relaxation of some tender conditions so that more of us can participate in. So many of us are very articulate, so we'll be able to deliver just as
Can you give me some specific examples of government tenders or
I'd be
requests
very
for
happy to
proposals
share with
and
you.
where you think that it has actually restricted competition?
Sure.
This you can, again, I would request a written representation.
Sure.
Now, I must also tell you, keep your expectations realistic.
Absolutely.
After you give a representation, we may do nothing. No, but nevertheless, if I am asking it from you, it is not because I intend to do nothing. I
Sure.
intend to do something. So please give me that representation. But specifics are important. You see,
Sure.
unless you say, in this example, here is an example floated by Ministry of so and so. The way they have put the conditions, only these 4 firms will qualify, or only the 4 plus 1. The 1 also is similar. That if I come to know that, then we can see what we can do to broaden the
We
reach.
can give you very concrete
Yes,
data
just
for the last few years.
Just to add to what she said, sir, 99% of these things are only drafted by them. Therefore, it is all only in their favor, nothing in favor of anybody, including my firm cannot participate in it.
But we have to look at how to
I have
correct
to be
it.
very
For
frank
which-
with you, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sir, 1 minute, sir. Ma'am, you want to say so?
Just finish it. The second issue is one of audit fees. I think India is possibly one of the most undercharged audit fee economies in the world. And somewhere along the line, in many cases, there are clients who come back and say, look, what is the CMAG paying? So the government fee scales are today.
But I was told bank is paying tremendous scale. Somebody told me today. They're paying for 4 years, they pay some this much, and first year amount is actually given. Something was told to me, so it is very attractive. Then I don't find it unattractive. I'm not sure it is unattractive. If it's so unattractive, why is this representation coming?
Sir, I'll tell you
If
why.
it is so unattractive, I expect this to be a non-issue. In fact, we should be going after you, begging you to come and do the audit.
So that's-
But instead it's the other way around. I'm not so sure.
Sir, I'll tell you, sir, it will go in the 3rd or 4th decimal of the bank's balance sheet, sir. Big or small, but I think you should give it to him with an example.
Yes, I
You
can
ma'am.
share.
You
The
ma'am.
third thing is the governance part. We're always constantly told that we need to do better, and absolutely admitted we should do better. Audit quality has to be better. But it'll be good if we can, we're very often told, come and complain. So if you really want to get this out, do you want to give us a whistleblower helpline and ask us to come out with things?
Okay.
We're very happy to do it. It'll be nice.
Okay. Yeah, please. Just 1 minute, sir. Now, next one will be you, please.
Interesting and useful suggestion. Thank you.
Sorry, sir, I'm going to divert a little from the accountants' problems and other stuff. I just want to take one sentence of whatever you spoke to us today about the number of school children reducing, right? So that is a huge economic problem which we are going to face. You are talking about 2047, but I find that no one is actually addressing the aging population in India. We are actually, our birth rates are reducing. So where exactly are we heading? We talk about so much, but we are not addressing this deep-rooted problem, which we have to address shortly. Maybe not immediately, a decade down the line.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Good evening, sir. I had a very enlightening lecture. So I have a question. Okay, so you were encouraging us to come to the government for any suggestions, points of view, tax evasions and all those things. Okay. Today...
No. I was very specific. I made a specific request on the issue of ethics and on the issue, particularly on the issue of ethics. I did not make... We receive numerous, dozens, hundreds, thousands of requests, representations on tax matters every year. There is no dearth of representations on tax matters. That was not...
No, not about tax matters, right? Other points of clarification on tax, anything to do with the government offices, right? So, but when we go to the government offices, we are not, when we write to the government office, for example, I wrote to the GST office on 18th of September, I have not even got an acknowledgement. Today, I have made around 20 to 25 calls to the tax research unit of the GST, only to be directed from one place to another place, one place to another place, one place to another place, and finally saying that we cannot take a decision on this. These are circulars issued by the tax research unit of GST. Okay, it would be Department of Revenue, right, sir?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I think
That's
last
a fair point, and
Okay.
I think I agree with you that a better job needs to be done in dealing with these issues. I take note of your point. I'm not directly in charge of either GST or income tax, but I've taken note of your suggestions, and we'll see what. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. It's a fair point, and I'm aware of this.
Also, you are giving a eye opener to the next generation of chartered accountancy people who are going to come to the profession. But two things I want to follow in your lecture is carbon probably, what is it, carbon dioxide is mainly due to deforestation policy of the government of India. That has only contributed to the carbon dioxide emission. Otherwise, there are certain trees which will absorb the carbon dioxide and leave the oxygen to the environment. That is not being replanted into our soil.
I'm not disputing that reduction in tree cover affects the environment, but just as a point of fact, forest cover in India has increased in the last decade from maybe a low level, but it has actually improved.
Bhaga, you have told about municipality, and there are certain languages in India which do not have any manuscripts. It goes by words.
No, but there are certain constitutionally listed languages in which all official work is done. They all have scripts. Every one of them which is listed in the 8th schedule of the Constitution has a script.
For example, I will tell you, Marathi language is different, Gujarati language is different. It doesn't have any one.
Gujarati has a script.
Yeah, but Marathi do not have.
Marwari is not one of the 8th schedule languages.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So can we close this?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hari sir lives on the principles he upheld and the values he cherished. We are honored to have his mother and daughter here with us today to share in this tribute to his memory. As a token of our immense affection for Hari sir and his family, I request Dr. Somanathan to present his family with a token of our respect. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending our warmest regards and gratitude to Hari sir's mother and his daughter Jyotsna. Thank you, Ma, and thank you, Joe, for being here with us today and being a part of this special occasion.
I just wanted to say at the end that I thank all of you for your suggestions, questions, criticism, which are often valid. I just wanted to say that I am by nature a practical person. There are some things which I can address directly, some things which I can only pass on to others, and some things which we may not even agree with your suggestion or with your criticism. So we will, however, I assure you that whatever you have given me, to the extent that they pertain to my area of operation or to the Ministry of Finance, I will certainly take them seriously. But some of the things that you have said may not easily get solved. So one has to then work with them as they are. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the privilege of hearing from two distinguished chief guests. Speeches have enriched our understanding and broadened our horizons. Their presence today has been truly inspiring. As we leave here today, we carry with us not only the valuable insights that they provided, but also the motivation to strive for excellence in our respective fields. Now, as we bring this seminar to a close, I request the SARC Secretary, Mr. Arun, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening to all. Respected Chief Guest of the day, C.V. Somanathan, IAS, Finance Secretary, and Sandana Krishna sir, past Central Council member, past President of our Institute, Vibhati sir, and Central Council members Rajendra Kumar and Sripriya Madam, and my council colleagues, Revati and Rekha, and our inspiring introduction by our Ramki sir and Ranganathan sir, and senior members, some students. Good evening to one and all present here. It is immense pleasure to propose a vote of thanks memorial lecture like this. So I heard about actually youngsters like us. It is a lot of inputs we carry out from this kind of memorial lecture. I think Ranganathan sir is told about our Hari sir. Sir, definitely it is a very inspiring for youngsters like us, sir. So our finance secretary is giving what are all the opportunities for us in the future, sir. So not current days we are not giving true and fair views, sir. Now we see the true and correct views. Now our certificate being chartered accountants, because by nature, by the profession itself, we are learning the adaptability, whatever the changes happen in the economy. So now being chartered accountants definitely give the true and correct view to the government, sir. So being a support system to the government, so definitely we also, so many people is raising their concern. The first time we heard some positive about our profession from the regulators, sir, in this, especially as said by the Sadhana sir. So definitely we also required some support from the government. So with this, I thank each and every one of you for this making this memorable Hariharan's memorial lecture is memorable. So thank you one and all.
I request you all to raise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you.